In this video, I will show you how to analyze the data that you've just collected using the force sensor for when the water is draining from the can with the pebble submerged therein. So the first thing to note is that the tension in the string is essentially the force sensor reading. Okay. Now the pebble is submerged in the water for the first part of the experiment, and then the water drains out, the pebble gets exposed, and thereafter the pebble is fully exposed and the water continues to drain for some time. So the first thing we want to do is to zoom in on the graph. So I'm going to zoom in here a couple of times until you can clearly see what's going on. So you can distinctly see three regimes here. There's this regime up here, there's the decreasing regime, and then another flatline regime. The stuff before this data is when I recorded the data before pulling the stoppers, and you can see that there's a blip here. This blip corresponds to when I pulled the stopper. Okay, so it's only after this that the water starts to flow, and then at this point the pebble gets exposed, meaning that the water level drops below the top surface of the pebble, and then the buoyant force diminishes, and as a result the tension increases in magnitude. Notice that the tension is negative, or rather the force sensor reading is negative, so the magnitude of this is actually the magnitude of the tension, so the tension force actually increases because the buoyant force diminishes as lesser and lesser of the pebble is submerged in water. And then finally over here the entire pebble is now revealed, so the water level has dropped below the lowermost part of the pebble, and thereafter the tension in the string is simply the weight of the pebble. So there are three regimes: the first regime here, the second regime here, and the third regime here. So what we want to do is we would like to determine the average value of the force sensor reading in regimes 1 and regime 3. Okay, so to get the average value here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in horizontally like so. So you can see this is the blip, and this is when it starts to diminish. So I'm going to take the average value from here to about here. Let me click the analysis tool, and I'm going to take this average like so. So you can see here that the average value for the force sensor reading is about negative 0.592 newtons. Okay, so that is the value of the tension in the string when the water is draining but the pebble is still fully submerged. Okay, so let me zoom out here a little bit. We want to now look at this part of the data. Okay, so I'm going to select again the analysis tool, and I'm going to select the data here. Okay, so you can see here that the average value here is about 0.795 newtons. Okay, so that is the tension in the string when the pebble is fully exposed, and the tension is simply the weight of the pebble. So that is how you would determine the average value of the tension in regimes 1 and regime 3. And in the next video I will show you how to deal with this central part of the data where the tension changes with time because the buoyant force diminishes as a function of time as the water level drops.